Indiana Jones is kind of the OG Tomb Raider, right?
He is.
He's a little bit of a grave robber.
He does grave robbing and looting and antiquity acquiring, and that's not archaeology.
Hey everybody, welcome to Doug Defense. I am Billy Business. If you're new to the show, welcome. This is where a real lawyer is going to apply real law to really fake things. I am Billy Business. And of course, if adventure has a name, it must be Doug Ridley.
Which you can't say with a straight face because
Not
you
with
hate
that
the
hat
hat.
on.
You hate the hat. I understand. And it's off brand because, I mean, look, it's actually Doug.
Yeah, it is Doug. I was worried for a second.
The lights in the studio have been readjusted now for the glare off my beautiful shiny head.
I didn't know until right now, production-wise, how much we need that bald head.
We do.
Yeah.
We do. I mean, it's our reflect.
It's a reflective surface. Well, today we're reflecting on one of the biggest action-adventure franchises of all time. We're talking about 1981's Raiders of the Lost Ark with Harrison Ford as Indiana Jones, also Karen Allen, John Rhys Davies, Denholm Elliott, and Paul Freeman, I think.
Yeah.
The guy, as a millennial kid, the guy that played Ivan Ooze in the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers movie. I'm sure he loves that that's his legacy with me. But yeah, there we go.
Yeah. Looking at IMDb, he has a name. They never say it in the movie, not once, and I don't remember anymore what it was. Tot or something like that?
No. Paul Freeman is Belloc.
Oh.
And then whoever plays
It's
Toad.
Bloche.
Yeah, but it's Belloc. Whoever plays Tote, that guy's great. I have
Tote.
no idea who that man is, but he will forever be that character.
Well, yeah. I can't ever think of him without his face melting.
So this was a throwback to the old serials. Spielberg and Lucas Dream Team. You had Lawrence Kasdan, one of the best writers ever, especially
Yes.
for genre nerds like us.
Yes.
It spawned 4 sequels that kind of went throughout the years. Just wrapped up with the last one a couple years ago, Dial of Destiny. But we're taking it all the way back to the beginning with Raiders of the Lost Ark, or Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark.
It's always going to be Raiders to me. You know, rewatching it for the show, what I was so blown away about was how just amazingly perfect this movie is. I mean, as a lawyer, super problematic, and we'll get to it in a moment. But as just what Lawrence Kasdan was able to do, I mean, there's so much that happens with Harrison Ford where he's not talking, and it's just brilliant subtleties, and I really was amazed by that. It's something that we really don't see anymore these days.
It's one of the tightest scripts I've ever seen. There's never a wasted moment. Every bit of exposition that comes out, and there has to be a lot of it, is done in such unique, engaging, entertaining ways. Kind of like the show you're watching.
Oh, right.
So, as you said, though, we are not a review show. As much
Right.
as we love this movie and
Yep.
we love this character.
And I want to make it really clear before we start. I love Indiana Jones. Indiana Jones is top 5 characters that exist in world history for me.
I'll do you one better. I think Indiana Jones is Harrison Ford's best character, period.
And we're gonna make some nerd friends really, really angry by saying that.
Yep.
But watching this again, and he is such a good actor,
Of course.
and just what he can communicate with not a word is just chef's kiss amazing.
So now that we've waxed poetic about our love for Henry Jones Jr.,
Yes.
oh boy,
The dog was Indiana.
we got some legal problems. So let's
We do.
jump right into it, because Indiana Jones He's kind of the OG Tomb Raider, right?
He is.
He's a little bit of a grave robber, which they even kind of make a joke in Crystal Skull when Shia LaBeouf's like, you're not going to take that. I was going to put it back. He uses the knife. Okay, so I think before we get into anything else, we kind of just have to talk about in general what Indiana Jones does, because I don't think that most archaeologists do what Indiana Jones does. He's more of a treasure hunter than an archaeologist in a lot of these things. But what kind of legal right does Indy have to just, there's a piece of history, pretty sure I know where it is, pretty sure I can get it, I'm just going to go do it. Now, let's keep in mind, this is all these adventures. We're talking the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, and the 60s.
Right.
So we never in any Indiana Jones movie get past the 60s. But for this one in particular, we're talking about the 30s.
Yeah. And one thing that I was surprised about was the amount of archaeologists that are actively presently on Reddit right now offended that Indiana Jones is called an archaeologist at all.
Sure, I
and
can see that.
And I would make the pitch that he is a professor of archaeology at the university, and so that's what qualifies him as an archaeologist.
Do you get really
Period.
angry if you watch the Lincoln Lawyer and you're like,
No, Lincoln Lawyer. Well, depends on which one.
Okay.
The Lincoln Lawyer show on Netflix, amazing. Manu Ruffalo, you are brilliant and love that show. The Matthew McConaughey is a hot, steaming mess. So cannot handle that one at all.
I digress.
Yeah, but going back to this, I would argue that the the doctorate of archaeology that he has, that has him teaching at a university, qualifies him as an archaeologist.
Okay, fair.
And then he does grave robbing and looting and antiquity acquiring, and that's not archaeology. And our Reddit friends who are watching, I heard you. And archaeology is dusting off stuff and preserving sites. Sure. So every time he goes through and smashes a gigantic statue through a snake wall, he's destroying the site, which is one of the rules of archaeology that you don't want to break. So, he's trying to save his life, of course, or Marion's life or whatever. But, the archaeologists apparently even today are insisting adamantly that it's more like what we see in Jurassic Park than what we see in Indiana Jones. He's
an adventurer. But I guess it begs the question, because it's we talked a little bit about this kind of tongue in cheek in the Batman Begins episode.
Yeah,
we went down a real rabbit hole of finders keepers,
yes,
way longer than we should have.
Yes,
but what's the difference between me taking a metal detector to the Malibu beach and looking for coins or something in the sand, and Indiana Jones just happening to go into caves and finding really cool stuff? What's the difference?
Well, you don't find as much cool stuff in Malibu Beach.
Okay,
so there's that.
Let's reframe the question.
You don't have to reframe.
On our legal podcast, what is legally the difference?
So, this has real historical significance. And while I am a criminal defense attorney, and that's my main area of focus, so many of you asked questions about the legality of this that I did some study and brushed up on it. So in 1936, which is when this movie was made, or when this movie was set, there were not the laws in place. There were a couple of attempts in the early 30s by Greece and another couple of countries to do some laws to stop other countries from coming in and taking their relics, but they didn't make a whole lot of progress. So in 36, when this happens, there's nothing that Indiana Jones is doing that is necessarily breaking a law for 1936. Okay. So, but then as you move forward, in 1970, that's when UNESCO, United Nations, put together rules, international rules that we all abide by, that treasures that are found in a country belonged to that country. And so if the Ark was uncovered in Egypt, in Cairo today, it would belong to the country of Egypt. Interestingly enough, Egypt actually, well, because of the fact that they've got a lot of cool stuff buried in the sand there, they also ended up Egyptian law, but not until 1983. Egypt passed their laws about making it very clear that they expect anything that's found in Egyptian soil to belong to the Egyptian government. So
that timing's interesting because this movie came out in 81. I wonder if they're like, wait, before all of you come over here and start digging us up, you can't do that.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, I wonder, I haven't tracked through the Egyptian legislative history on this.
What have you been doing this whole time,
I
Doug?
know. Clearly just practicing law and going to court every day. But that can't be a coincidence, and I'm sure, they see massive dig sites outside of Cairo and don't want that to happen. But even then, when the movie came out, the UNESCO law, the UNESCO treaty, had already come into play. So I mean, at least there was an acknowledgement in the early 70s that this isn't something that is okay. But again, if we're looking at the legality of me defending Indiana Jones in 1936, no problem.
Time traveler Doug.
Time traveler Doug. Ooh, if I could go back and represent Indiana Jones, no question.
So I think that's a fair assessment, which was, and you could say this about a lot of things, but it was just like, well, at that time, it was legal.
Yeah.
So let me ask you then more, like, let's get more granular, not so much of what he's taking, but, he's going on these expeditions, and we open up Raiders of the Lost Ark. He's clearly got some, I don't know, freelance Sherpas or whoever they are.
Right.
A couple of them try to betray him.
Right.
Alfred Molina,
Alfred
Molina. He's gonna end up with a spike through him eventually. But is Indy liable for any injuries or death that are caused to the people that come with him on these adventures? Because you have to assume he hired them.
Right. No, and it's a fair question. If I hire people and take them on an adventure, it's a question of employment law. It's a question of workers' compensation law again. It's a question of civil liability, and then it's a question, might be, of contract law, which is, you're going into a place where they have poison darts and snakes and tarantulas and spikes through eyeballs, and you assume that this is a risk.
Right.
That assumes that Indiana Jones had me right there by his side, drafting up contracts for Alfred Molina and his buddy, and all of those folks. But if, for example, if I take my law office to Boston for a legal conference, and we go out on an adventure to go karaoke singing that night.
Right.
And our adventure ends up with somebody breaking their leg or getting hit by a car as they go across the street or something along those lines. There's arguments there that I'm responsible for whatever injuries because I brought them there and they're on the clock and they're working. It would, even if it was karaoke, even if it was off site, especially if it's far away, then it's most likely a workers' compensation claim. Now, on the other hand, if I had someone who was just an independent contractor, my Sherpa guide through Boston,
Sure.
I want to know where the speakeasies are, I want to know where the witch tours are, and I want to know where karaoke is. And if we get that done, and I pay somebody a couple $100, that's going to be a different scenario than employees. And I have no idea what the difference in employment rights would be in Peru in 1936, because that's a deep dive I didn't go on.
Okay, let's assume it's today law. We
Right.
know it's 1936,
Right.
but for the sake of this podcast, it's
Yeah.
today law.
Okay.
So theoretically, I guess it would be like me hiring just like a handyman
Right.
at that point and something happening to them.
That's a perfect question, because if you're hiring a handyman and the handyman trips on a ladder and falls on your property, that's going to be a completely different legal theory than if I take my entire law office out hiking and somebody gets bit by a rattlesnake or twists their ankle or something along those lines. I have a different relationship with my staff because they're full-time employees versus the handyman that is, more of a contractual property liability.
I'm guessing your staff is not going to pull out a revolver and try to take you out before you.
Stranger things have happened.
Yeah.
I like my chances on that though.
Plus, you could also argue that Indy doesn't know exactly what's in those caves, right? So it's
Right.
like, I feel like with my legal degree, it would probably be hard to prove that Indy like endangered them intentionally, because he probably just told him like, I don't know what's in there. It's probably really bad, but if you want to come with me, here's $100.
Well, here's the pushback on that. So Indy knew to stay out of the light. Indy knew to approach every single cave differently, and Indy was able to avoid all of those dangers. The only way that Indy was able to avoid all those dangers is because he had done some research about, hey, don't put your hand in the light because spikes will come out of the wall and stab you in the eye. So
what book was that in?
the thing.
No, I'm saying,
Oh.
what textbook would he open and be like?
I have no idea, but he knew.
Sure.
And so if he knew, then he knew exactly what he was putting those people at risk for.
Which I would argue, it's like he's just been around the block enough to know that
you
that
never
those
put
are
your hand in the light.
Yeah, those are some tricks. Those are some tricks.
I love that we're assuming that it would just be, oh yeah, you never put your hand on a light.
No.
I mean, my goodness.
Not in a cave.
No, never.
You always put like a stick or something
Right,
out
of
in the light
course.
to see what happens.
And you don't ever step on stones.
No. Especially if there's like a marker on it or something. Unless you know how to spell Jehovah the right way.
Right.
Don't step on anything.
It's with a Y.
That's what I say.
I know.
Um,
No, I mean, the legal principle is right. I mean, there is somewhat of a, how much does he know? How intentional is he putting these people in danger?
Right.
I think there's also, with Indiana Doug right next to him, signing all of his stuff. Yeah, no. We're hashtag Indiana Doug. Let's get that going. With his lawyer next to him.
okay.
I would have him sign contracts, how many times do you go like on a set or a shoot or something along those lines, and they're like, here, sign this non-disclosure agreement. Nobody
Yeah.
reads the darn thing. They
Sure.
just sign it really quick and
Oh,
away
those
they
are
go.
wild, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Like the language in it, it's
You
like
give up your right forever if we intentionally punch you in the face.
well, it's also too. It's like throughout the known. One of them I saw was like throughout the known universe. Like
And
yeah.
until the end of time.
right, yeah. Like they
Yeah.
are wild. If you
Yeah.
ever see one, like look at it. They're crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're obviously applying present day law at this point to this movie, because if you don't, this would be a 10-minute episode where you're just like, yep, in the 30s, you could do a
Right.
whole lot of crazy shit in the 30s. So let's go back a second to Indy finding the artifacts and with present day law. So now, under that lens, we know he can't really do it. Or he would have to, I guess, be hired by that government to find it. But in the beginning of this movie, the United States government comes to Indy and says, we want to find the Ark of the Covenant. Now, if the government, I think they were FBI agents,
Right.
CIA, FBI, whatever it was. Now, does that legally empower him to do this if they're like, hey, we want to give you this mission?
Right. And they paid him for it,
Did they?
Yeah. They talk about, him and Marcus talk about, you're going to be paid handsomely. And then Indy says, and it's going in a museum.
Oh, right.
And he's, oh yeah, sure. It's going to a museum. But What that does is it puts him in the clear with the United States government. So he's not going to come back home and get in trouble from the United States government when they have hired him as a contractor to go adventure and steal stuff from another country. Now, I think where he's going to have the trouble is Egypt filing charges against Indiana Jones for taking the Ark, this piece of treasure, out of their country. So Egypt has a claim against Indy. United States just used him as a contractor, so he'd be clear in the United States. And then I would hope in a situation like that, if a U.S. employee hired by the government to go do something, hopefully there's some sort of diplomacy or something between the two countries that would get him off the hook. You know, it's not like a Mission Impossible sort of thing where, you know, he takes the mission knowing that they're going to disavow him, you know, forever. You know, this was something where he was hired, you know, and hired to go and do this mission specifically.
So, you know, we joked at the beginning, but he is a professor.
He is a professor. I also am a professor, so I know about professoring.
So, well, pen a rose on your nose.
I don't roll my eyes like that every time you say that we have the same legal education.
Because you know that's true and it's valid.
I am an adjunct professor at Pepperdine Law School.
I know. That's how I found you. So let me ask you this then.
Yes.
Not even lawyer Doug. Let me ask Professor. Let me ask
you
Professor
can't even
Ridley.
Say professor
I can't. Let me ask Professor Ridley.
They call me Prof, by the way. Keep going.
Oh God.
Hey, Prof.
The amount of editing I'm going to have to do.
Yeah, I know. Or you just leave it all in because, oh my gosh, we're killing it right now.
Oh, all right. Crushing it. So
go ahead. What was your question for Prof?
So teach. They come to you and they say Marcus is we kind of surmise from when he comes back with the fertility idol, or doesn't come back with it, I should say, but he comes back from that mission. It seems like he has this deal with Marcus and the school that he's going on this mission. Would you say this is kind of a misappropriation of, like, it feels like the university at the end of the day, like if I'm Indiana Jones and I somehow get nailed on all this stuff, I'm going to be like, what you really want to do is you want to go after the university because they're the ones that are like kind of illegally doing this, right?
Well, and if Indy is going in his role as Professor Jones, then the legal analysis is right on. I mean, the university is liable. You know, most of my friends that do that kind of law, they're going to sue the person, they're going to sue the employer, they're going to sue the city, they're going to sue anybody that they can, because the university is going to have more money, more funds, and deeper pockets than Indiana Jones is going to have. You know, no matter how many of those antiquities he's got on the wall that he decided to keep at home rather than put it in a museum. But, you know, besides all the stuff that he has on his wall, he could probably liquidate some stuff and pay a judgment. But it's a whole lot easier to get money from a university. So if there's lawsuits involved, absolutely. Anybody with half a brain who practices in that area of law would sue the university.
It feels like he could never really get fired because he'd be like, oh, yeah, well, what about all the illegal missions you sent me on, you know?
You know, and there might be a deep dive like in a novel or a book or behind the scenes somewhere that goes into that a little bit more in detail, and we invite you to go ahead and get in the comments and tell us all about what you read in the third version of the comic book.
All right, let's talk about the one legal thing about this movie that comes up a lot.
Yes.
It's an elephant in the room.
It is.
So let's just get it out of the way. So the first leg of his adventure to finding the Ark is going to track down his old love, Marion Ravenwood. Yep. There's
Nepal.
In Nepal, in her bar.
Yep.
And we'll talk about some of the stuff in the bar in just a second. But first, there's a line where we get some information about their background, that they had a romantic history. And she says, I was just a child. And he said, you knew what you were doing.
Right. I need one of the pieces your father collected.
I learned to hate you in the last 10 years.
I never meant to hurt you.
I was a child. I was in love. It was wrong and you knew it.
You knew what you were doing.
Now I do. This is my place. Get out.
Go ahead. Go, Doug.
And
Start.
just
start.
toss that in the room.
Yep.
and just
I'm
go.
going to toss
Okay.
that grenade and just sit back.
So here's the thing. I remember. I mean, I saw this movie in the theater, as a kid.
Okay.
And I remember asking my dad, like, what does that all mean? It's like, oh, it just means that she was younger than him.
That's how I took it as a kid too. Never took it as
not that she's a child. I mean, there are times where I work with people that are 18, 19, 20 years old, and they're just a child.
They're kids.
They're kids. Their brains haven't formed completely yet. Sorry, your brains haven't formed completely yet. Go Google that rather than yell at me. So that's how I took it. Then to prep for the show, I went down the rabbit hole of how old is she really, and that really depends on which source material you go to.
Right.
And we know that in the novelization, they put Marion as 25 in Raiders of the Lost Ark, and which would make her 15, and that's problematic. And Indy would be in his mid to late 20s, and that's all kinds of crimes and bad. If there's also, though, some reference that as Lawrence Kasdan developed this and wrote it, and as it was shot, it actually puts Marion at 27, which would put her at 17, which is not as big of a problem. Age of consent was 16, and there weren't those sorts of issues. And depending on where they were in the world, there might not be any issue with the fact that they had a relationship. I mean, we don't know where in the world they had a relationship. And there are some countries that the age of consent is 16. Some countries now in the U.S. it's 18. There are some countries that the age of consent is 14. So it just really depends. And then there's the fact that it's the 30s, and the age of consent generally was lower in the 30s. We're definitely led to believe that he was older than her, she was younger, and that it was a relationship that was maybe not appropriate. And that's why Abner was upset.
Right.
He loved you like a son. It took a lot to drive you away. Oh, just you. Yeah. So when his buddy Abner Ravenwood found out that Indy was dating his teenage daughter, Ned made things awkward, and so they broke up. Nobody expects that to be something that's a positive thing, and as a dad myself, even if it was something where it was a 19-year-old and a 43-year-old, I'd be fiercely protective of my 19-year-old.
Yeah.
So if it's up to me, I'm going with Lawrence Kasdan's assertion that she was 27 in Raiders, which puts her at 17, which means that she's past the age of consent legally for 1936, and that's how I'm defending Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
So I love Indiana Jones, and I don't want to view him as somebody who dated a child per se, that it was more hyperbole. I was too young to be dating you, and you knew that.
Yeah, I always took it as like an emotional maturity as opposed to a literal age.
And I think the proof for that, Billy, is right afterwards. He says, well, you were old enough. You knew what you were doing. She's like, I know what I'm doing now. So, I mean, all of the conversation about it was about whether you knew what you were doing, which feeds the argument that it was an emotional child.
I would say if you really want to get the behind the scenes, it came out a while back. There's transcripts of the story meetings that Lucas and Spielberg and Kasdan had. Go read that. Come back to this video and you can decide what you want to do. But I believe Lawrence Kasdan was like, well, I'm going to split the difference on that idea and just leave it what it is. So
I'll put my flag in the sand on she's 17 when they date.
Okay, I think it's safe to blanket say Indiana Jones, not an offender, and leave it there.
I agree.
Let's bury it in the sand for someone to to find.
Someone to dig up later and break the UNESCO law.
So Tote and his men come into the bar. They set it ablaze. Was there anything in that scene that you saw that couldn't just be wiped away with self-defense at that point?
No, everything that Indy did at that point was defense of Marion or defense of himself. So just all the way through, these guys are attacking her, they're attacking him, and everything that he did was defense of others and self-defense.
Would you
Super
say
clean.
that about just about every kill that he does? A lot of kills in this movie.
He does a lot of kills in this movie, and I didn't remember seeing one that jumped out as, wow, that's just straight up murder.
The only one that I would think of, and just because we've talked a lot on this show about like meeting a force with an equal force,
right?
The most famous death in the whole movie, which is the guy swinging the sword, and he just kind of shrugs and shoots him. Like, that seems to me maybe the only one where it was just like, you could have ran.
Well, we definitely have talked about how, you need to meet equal force. But I think if I was defending Indy, I could argue pretty compellingly that the guy swinging a sword all around, coming right at him, laughing a bit and getting ready to go was trying to kill him. I've actually seen cases and know of cases where, somebody wielding a machete came at police officers or came at civilians, and you can bet if somebody's coming at me swinging a machete all around all fancy like that guy was, and he's coming right at me, I'm totally justified to shoot that guy.
How do you know that he's not just a sword salesman and he's like a wacky waving arm guy? He's just like, look at my beautiful swords, and then Indy just shoots him.
I love that you are defending the swordsman, and I think how is you look at all the context clues. So him looking at him and evilly like, ha,
that
and
seems
then
really subjective.
And then it is subjective, and then as he starts kind of moving towards him and the eye contact and everything else,
he doesn't move at all. He's standing in one spot.
Well, I think he moves quite a bit, Billy.
Well, his upper half moves, but he's not charging forward. Don't you have to charge forward?
You don't have to. No, I mean,
Really?
especially and what it would be is you would look at it through the lens of what. Was it reasonable for Indiana Jones to think that after all of these people chasing him and trying to kill him and coming at him with swords and coming at him with knives and everything else, that this guy with a much bigger sword, who is like ready to go, and is swinging all around and doing like his warm up stuff to have the big sword fight? Yeah, I would defend him. I would get Indy off the hook for that.
No, okay. Well, then I'll see you in court because I think I'm taking
do it.
wacky waving, inflatable sword arm guy.
And we would be remiss if we didn't call out that the reason why Indy used the gun was that Harrison Ford had tummy trouble.
Oh yeah,
and so he was like, I need to.
I believe John. They all did. And John Rhys Davies, I think, crapped his pants. Was like, "Yeah, I'm done. I'm done."
Yeah, and so the look of disgust on his face was equal parts. I don't want to be in a sword fight with.
Sure.
I also don't want to have an accident in my pants during a sword fight.
I don't want to be like Sala and take a big Sala and all over Sala myself. Okay, let's talk about. The Nazis in this. Now, we know they're the bad guys. We know that in World War II, obviously we are going to fight these Nazis, but World War II hasn't started yet in 1936. So my question is like, I feel like it would be easier to kind of be like, Indy killing Nazis during wartime. There's no issue there. They're the enemy, but the war hasn't started yet. So can he go after those Nazis even though we are not at that point in history like at war with them?
Well, I don't remember a time where he says, "I got to kill me some Nazis." Right? I mean,
That would be a great one-liner, though.
It would be a great one-liner. I mean, later he does say Nazis. I hate these guys, right? I mean, I think it was in Last Crusade that he says that. So in this movie, the fact that they're Nazis makes them more ominous, more dangerous. We know what's coming up. We know that there's a Hitler book burning Indiana Jones face to face with De Fuhrer in Last Crusade coming up. Right. We know that all of that stuff is happening. But throughout this film, it's just the bad guys. And if we think about it, it's not like Indy pulled a Mr. Terrific going through a camp, wiping out, the entire private army like Mr. Terrific did. Great scene in Superman. Indy is almost always on a mission, rescuing Marion, trying to get into the map room, trying to get into the Well of Souls. He is not in the position of like actively trying to kill Nazis.
I guess it'd be like if I was going after something in 1998 and I killed a whole bunch of Osama bin Laden's top guys, but 9/11 hadn't happened yet.
Right.
And there was no war on terror at that point. Right. But I'm just like, I guess legally standing, like, for Indy, does it just all blanket fall under self-defense? Because, like, now we're starting to get into that Superman territory a little bit where it's like he's kind of doing political killings in the sense of he's working for the U.S. government. Mm-hmm. He's now attacking another country's army that at that point in time we were not at war with. Like, does it get more complicated, or is it still as simple as like self-defense?
Well, I think the problems that we saw develop in Superman would be potentially in if this was something that were to happen, today, or with social media being what it is and all of that. I mean, that definitely exacerbated the problems that Superman had. Right. The fact that everybody had cameras out and everybody was filming everything. Indy going into territory and being in conflict, it's less of a battle like we see Superman. I mean, it's less about punching tanks and punching soldiers and all of that. Right. It's escaping a camp. Sure. It's breaking in and escaping a camp. It's going after the treasure. And as he's going after the treasure, they're trying to kill him, and he's just trying to get the damn treasure. And so, the whole scene as he's leaving the camp with the Ark, all of those sequences, they're trying to kill him. He just wants his Ark back, is all he's trying to do.
His Ark back, which he has no legal claim to.
Well, it's now we're back to finders keepers.
It always comes back to finders keepers. Okay, let's talk about the Ark for a second. Now, what does the law consider, or is there a legal definition of a weapon of mass destruction? Because this thing, that's exactly what it is. You open it up, if your eyes aren't shut, like, you're donezo. Like, would that be something where, like, if I had it in my possession, I could be arrested because it's considered a weapon of mass? Like, what is considered?
Well, and the legalities of what is a weapon of mass destruction, I mean, it's literally just in the name, right? And it's not, I mean, we could go into code sections and all of that.
But what's mass destruction?
Lots of deaths.
Is there a number?
I don't know in the code if they actually attach a number to
a knife. Could be a weapon of mass destruction if I stab enough
if Deadpool people. Has it. Yeah.
So
no question.
Like, what's the difference between
that?
I
mean, it's the difference is it's a device that's designed specifically for killing lots of people. So a nuclear bomb is not a targeted device where I could stab one guy in the neck and be done. A nuclear weapon is designed to wipe out mass amounts of people, so possession of a nuclear weapon, possession of a weapon of mass destruction, a gas bomb, a chemical weapon, those sorts of things, they're designed to indiscriminately kill lots of people. Assuming that Raiders of the Lost Ark depicts the Ark of the Covenant the way that it really is, no question that falls into that category. So, you know, we allow governments to have weapons of mass destruction. We allow some governments to not have weapons of mass destruction. And so it really just depends on who's got it. If you had it, you know, on your bookshelf in your office, assuming it would fit on your bookshelf in your office, or, you know, I was using it as a footrest and, you know, just having it in my living room. No, I mean, any more than we could have a nuclear warhead. Now, what's different about the Ark is that it is a religious object on top of everything else. So we don't generally know of or acknowledge religious artifacts that are weapons of mass destruction, at least that we know of. But the religious artifact aspect of it, I can see a church, one of the many churches that would fight over who should have possession of this. You know, the Jewish church, you know, Jewish synagogues, the Jewish community would want the box that held, you know, the 10 Commandments that they base their entire religion on. Christianity would want it because we base it on the same. Muslims would want it because they're based on the same. So it becomes a religious war on top of the fact that people would be scrambling for it if this was found and if it was truly there.
So do you think that the United States government had an obligation to disclose what they had, to do something with it, or do you think that they were legally justified in putting it in a box and making it disappear?
Yeah, I think that is one of the most real, most true moments of this movie, is that they disappeared it, you know, as a verb. You know, they you know, the fact that it is too dangerous to study. It is too dangerous for a bunch of scientists to see. Oh, let's see. You close your eyes. You don't close your eyes. Who survives today? Let's see. You know, I mean, they don't want scientists poking around on it. It is too dangerous, and I agree with that. And I think, honestly, as frustrated as Indy might be at the end, and we're designed to feel Indy and how he feels in that moment, gosh, I mean, stepping back, the most responsible thing they could do is lock that thing away and make sure that nobody ever touches it.
In Area 51, which we find out much later.
Exactly.
So on that note, Indy seems to be there. So a lot of people are like, how did Indy know to close his eyes when it's open? There was a deleted scene where he gets more of that tablet translated, and it basically kind of says, like, you are not worthy to look upon it. And so he remembers that and shuts his eyes. That's how it happened. It's not in the movie, though, so I get it. That being said, he does have knowledge when they open it up to not open it. Could Indy, in any stretch of the imagination, be liable for every single death of every single person there that is melted by the Ark of the Covenant? Or is it like, oh, that's too bad, like they were holding me captive?
Yeah, I would vigorously defend Indiana Jones if the Nazis decided to hold him accountable for the death of their soldiers after stealing and opening a religious artifact and incurring the wrath of God. I think that's for the gram right there.
Would a judge throw you out?
A judge wouldn't throw me out.
I mean, would they be?
You're the one that's out of order. No, I mean, no. There's no way that a person who's kidnapped, who doesn't issue proper warnings for a weapon of mass destruction, is going to end up being held accountable or
even
liable.
Even
if he knows. I mean, let's put it in today. If I was kidnapped by a bunch of terrorists, and
my legal
knowledge, clearly, and I knew that they were about to open up a box of explosives, I don't think that I have an obligation to warn everyone, hey, I know you're kidnapping me, but what you're about to do is really dangerous.
Fair enough. Yeah. Okay. So, during the show, we always ask for fan questions, and we read a couple. This is the most fan questions
oh my gosh.
we have ever got ever.
Yeah.
Ever.
And some warnings from some of the fans. Hey, you better not go after my boy Indiana Jones. So I'm defending Indiana Jones.
They're probably
friends.
like, who's this loser who's defending the wacky waving armed sword guy? It's Billy Business at Billy Business on socials. Okay, so let's go to our fan questions. We'll try to get through as many of these as possible.
Yeah.
So Dan says, what is the legal basis for removing objects from foreign countries? We kind of talked about this already. Are you facing criminal actions from those governments? So I guess that's a good follow-up of like, okay, if we're putting Indy in today's laws and he goes to Egypt and he gets the Ark of the Covenant and he gets caught.
Right.
So is, under that kind of 1970s act, like which jail is he going to? Who is he stuck?
He's in an Egyptian jail.
Oh,
yeah. I mean, they passed that law in 1983. We were talking about that before, and they would have jurisdiction over him. It's no different than somebody coming here and stealing at Target.
Is there anything that like you as a defense attorney can do at that point, or is it just like you've got to find an Egyptian attorney who will help you?
Oh, great question. I do not have a license to practice law in anywhere except for California. So what I could do, there's a very complicated procedure called a pro hoc vice that would allow me to be a guest and allow me to speak in another courthouse outside of my jurisdiction, but I'd have to be sponsored by somebody who's licensed to practice law there. And I've never looked to see whether I can appear in an Egyptian court. Maybe that's a field trip that you and I need to take.
Is there anything that you could do to try to get Indy extradited back here? Or
you could, but the country that is charging him with a crime is going to have a claim on him, and we've got clients that sometimes end up getting caught up in those situations, and it's very uncomfortable, I hear, to do time in an Egyptian jail or Moroccan jail or wherever you might end up being.
So this question is probably more of an ethical question than a legal question, but let's go for it.
Yeah.
Just because they have a really cool username. Pyro Wicket.
Ooh, I like that.
That sounds like the little Ewok is just setting off fireworks.
Right.
If it belongs in a museum, why is it not more important that it belongs in a museum within the country of its origin? Which I feel like we've just discovered.
Yeah, it's not. And it's not. And not to go down a rabbit hole of countries and museums all over the world that have artifacts, but there are significant museums all over the world that take a whole lot of heat for why do you still have our columns? Why do you still have marble that belongs to Greece or Egypt
That's
or
what
whatever?
I was going to say. It feels like, with like the Crusades and all of these different things, it's like, at what point does the law say, okay, well, like history stops here to determine who is the rightful owner?
And it's a huge argument. The British Museum specifically has had a bunch of flack over what they have there in their possession, and there always seems to be some sort of effort going on behind the scenes for them to reclaim some of their national treasures, and that's very timely, and it's something that's happening right now today.
All right, Wendy. Oh, we haven't talked about this. I love this question. Wendy says they train the monkey to spy on and kill Indy, the little Nazi monkey.
Little Nazi monkey.
If I train an animal to kill, can I be charged with the murder even if I'm not the one that's doing it?
Yeah.
If you train a monkey to kill someone and the monkey kills someone,
well,
that sounds to me like you're liable more of like a manslaughter than a murder. Like, how would they know it was premeditated, right?
Yeah, I mean, it depends. I mean, if you've trained a monkey to wield a knife and I turn the monkey loose on you, there's a plan in place there. That doesn't just accidentally happen. If we instead look at dog bite cases, right? And we look at cases where, someone with a especially aggressive animal, they're just walking their animals down the street, and now all of a sudden, somebody gets bit or attacked and passes away. the owner is responsible for what the dog does. So
But that's
legally
not
responsible.
a murder charge.
It's usually not a murder charge because that's usually something that just happens, spur of the moment. It's not like, I trained my Chihuahua to attack a billy scent.
So what if it's this? What if this is the craziest hypothetical I'm ever going to throw on this show?
Okay.
What if I'm a celebrity animal trainer and I have a monkey and he's a movie monkey, right?
Right.
And let's say that secretly there's someone on that movie set that I want dead, and I train this monkey when I say
Action.
when I say Snickers, want a Snickers, that this monkey is going to go and choke the living life out of this person, right? And it happens. It happens on set, right? Hungry, why wait? Here's a Snickers. He goes, okay? So that is very premeditated.
Right.
That is me wanting to kill someone. But at that point, could it just be like, oh my God, this monkey went crazy and my insurance will cover any death or wrongful death to that family.
Right.
And I just got away with the perfect crime.
You may have. And so when the producers of The Lincoln Lawyer include that in the next season, will you please just credit us or at least give us a shout out and a tag? That might just be the perfect crime.
Which, by the way, if you're a fan of my other show, Reboot It, that's pretty much the entire pitch of our Ace Ventura reboot. So it was Ace Ventura, True Pet Detective.
True Pet Detective.
All right. Anyways, I digress. Let's go to Nick. How would you defend Indy's vandalism of the library in Venice? Now, this one is from Last Crusade, but as you pointed out, he does it anyway, like, knocking over the statues in the Well of Souls.
Right.
Like, is the argument just like in the case of survival, saving a human life is more important than saving a historical artifact?
Absolutely. And I would successfully argue that certainly for what he does in Raiders of the Lost Ark. It does raise an interesting issue, even though this isn't a Last Crusade episode. But he goes in, he breaks, the priceless marble flooring that the Templars have made just to get a map, just to get more information.
Right.
So that is a very different scenario than him busting down the snake wall so that he can escape because he's going to die.
Right.
So it really depends on the justification. And I think every scenario has a slightly different justification for it.
All right, this one is from Barbara, and this is just a Doug opinion. I don't even think this is a legal opinion, but if Indy had lived into the 2000s, would he support the efforts to get these artifacts back to their home countries? My opinion is absolutely 100%.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, his insistence that this belongs in a museum is a very ethical, that's where pieces should be. And if we, he was older and he drank from the cup, and so he's still around in 2025. I would think that he would be the loudest voice for returning of artifacts back to their country of origin and making it all right and doing that.
Daniel asks, and this goes back to what we were talking about with all the Nazi soldiers and basically everyone that he fights in this movie. Daniel asks, does Indy have to report the injuries or deaths that he causes on this adventure? Like, who do you even report that to?
Yeah, I can imagine who he would have to report it to. I would imagine, because some of this is government contractor, that there would be some sort of an after action report that he would file, because, they say we've read your report at the very end, right? I mean, we've seen everything. Is everything acceptable? The money's fine, but, the situation's unacceptable. I do believe that Indy probably writes up a report about what he does in Raiders. I don't believe that Indy has an obligation to let the Egyptian government know that he just shot this
innocent, wacky-waving
wacky waving sword salesman in the middle of the street. And also, like we said before, so much of that is self-defense.
Right.
So, who's gonna file the claim at that point? I mean, who's gonna beef it? I don't know that there is an obligation there. Today, if he was just walking down the streets of Moore Park and killed a person, yeah, you better believe he needs to, even if it's in self-defense, the way that you make sure that the police understand that it's self-defense is you call the police, you let them see the crime scene, you give them a statement, you say what's going on after calling your lawyer who advises you to do that.
Timothy asks, and I think this is maybe referring to the fertility idol at the beginning of the movie. That was a mission from Marcus. Would taking artifacts from other countries to sell to an American museum be considered selling stolen property or smuggling? Could you say that Marcus really and Indy kind of have this almost like this smuggling racket?
Oh, I think in 1936 it's finders keepers, and that's what the rules were, and that's the reason why UNESCO made the law in 1970. It's the reason why Egypt made the law in 1983. And so in 36, it's not a conspiracy or a criminal act or anything along those lines.
Okay, sorry. I'm gonna use my old man. I gotta get real close to the screen for this one. Your boy EB27. This is a great question. How do you get through customs with the treasure?
Yeah, that's really great. I got to believe that in the same way that they weren't concerned about his firearm going through customs or being packed in a suitcase, it's not like we had TSA in 36. So today, if I was to have a golden fertility idol that I was bringing back with me from my adventures in Italy, I would have to claim it and say, hey, this is something that's worth more than, whatever the minimum amount is that you have to claim. But we travel, you can bring back a sword from another country. You can bring back jewelry. You can bring back, expensive things from another country. It's just that the country ends up knowing about it.
I'm going to end on this question. I think this is a great question because we've talked a lot about concealed carry and weapons possession. But No Sira asks, is it legal to carry around a bullwhip?
Oh, threw that curveball right at the end. I was getting all ready to answer the gun question. There's no rule against a bullwhip, which is really interesting.
That's
because
crazy.
Because there's so many other things that there are rules about. There's rules about how long of a blade a pocket knife can have. There's rules whether it's a fixed blade or a folded blade. There's rules about cane knives. There's rules about all of these different, there's rules about brass knuckles. You're not allowed to have brass knuckles. There's so many different weapons that are acknowledged. I'm not aware of a rule that says in California you can't carry a bullwhip. So maybe that's what I'm going to do in court this afternoon. Is just walk in with a bullwhip and see what happens.
Just see what happens.
No.
Take that one right there.
Oh my gosh.
And just see.
That one, no question. I could get in and out of the courtroom with no problem.
Okay.
That one. But I mean,
well, swing it at the judge and see if you walk out of
I
that
will
courtroom.
not, in fact, swing it at anyone.
Okay, so now it's time for the speed round. Not a whole lot of characters in this one, but
right.
let's say let's start with Marcus.
Okay.
For basically hiring Indy to potentially smuggle in using today law, not
using 1936
law. If he gets caught, like, hey, you hired this guy to go steal these artifacts from you or for you, are you taking Marcus? Are you going to take him on as a client?
Yeah, I think I am, because Marcus is just a well-meaning guy. And the Marcus that we see in Raiders is also so different from the Marcus that we see in Last Crusade, where he's just so silly with Sean Connery. So, yeah, no, I'll defend him for that.
Okay. Well, political beliefs aside, are you going to take on Belloc?
No.
No Belloc.
No, and honestly,
he really does the same thing Indy does. He's just doing it for the bad guys.
and he's doing it better. I mean,
he's letting Indy do all the work,
right?
And then
right.
coming in. Yeah.
He just takes what he has. But no, and it's not even necessarily. I can't set aside the fact that he works for the Nazis.
Well, he also kidnaps Marion, so he's got a kidnapping charge.
He definitely does have kidnapping charges, and and potentially, arguably, I mean, if we're going on the 1936 Finders Keepers, every time he recovers something from Indiana Jones, he's guilty of theft from Indiana Jones. When Indy is taking it from the ground, he's at least got the I'm recovering antiquities, argument about what he's doing. When he steals it from Indy, he's stealing it from another person. And so I think that that's a problem too. But having said that, as a private criminal defense attorney, I get to pick who I want to represent, and I'm not representing a Nazi, just straight out. And if I've just turned off whoever it is that's watching this, who's now upset with me because I won't defend a Nazi, just unsubscribe. It's no problem at all.
Yeah, that's fine with us. Marion doesn't really do anything in this movie. Everything, even when she fights in the bar, it's always self-defense.
Yeah, I mean,
she never really starts anything.
No, and even when she escapes from Belloc, again, she's trying to escape a kidnapping. Maybe a negligence lawsuit for flipping the mirror and cracking Indy's jaw.
What about
on the boat?
Is she at all liable when Tote gets that necklace burned into his hand?
Nah, that's all him just being a dumbass.
It's her establishment.
Agreed completely. And he burned it down, and he grabbed something that was in the middle of a fire. And no, that's just him being dumb.
All right, let's talk about the man of the hour.
Yes,
Indiana Jones. For today's laws, he's taken a lot of stuff.
Yep.
He's killed a very innocent, wacky waving arm man, and he potentially had a very inappropriate relationship depending on your definition of consent. Are you taking Henry Jones Jr. as a client?
All day, every day. I love Harrison Ford. I love Indiana Jones, and I'm absolutely defending him. The way I defend him on the wacky sword salesman is that he had a reasonable belief that the guy was coming at him, which I've already argued successfully. The relationship with Marion, I'm still going to say that she was 17 and the age of consent was 16, and so while she was young and dumb, it wasn't a crime. And it was
icky, but not a crime.
I could be completely wrong about that, but in my world, in my brain, she's 17 and it's inappropriate but not illegal. And all the other people he killed, I really feel like the self-defense argument on all of them just carries and works. So no, I'm defending Indiana Jones for sure.
One character that we haven't talked about other than him crapping his pants.
Sala.
I'm so sorry. So sorry. I respect the hell out of you, John Rhys Davies. But could you say that, if we're using current law about Indy stealing these artifacts, would you consider Sala aiding and abetting to this crime? And would you take his case?
I would take his case, and he's a co-conspirator. And if we're using today's laws, Marcus and Indy and Sala and Marion are all working together to try to take treasures and antiquities from foreign soil. So from the government that owns them.
Sorry, you said soil, and I just can't stop
Foreign soil, specifically.
I mean, that's exactly what happened. Steven Spielberg, I think, was the only one that didn't get sick because he brought like SpaghettiOs or tuna or something because he's like, goodness. I'm not eating anything there. Well, this was an episode
That's an interesting way to end it.
It was different. Yeah. I mean, nothing says a great time with Doug like diarrhea. But
Wow.
if you want a great time, more episodes that are kind of like this, go ahead and hit like, subscribe, leave a comment. When was the last time you had Montezuma's Revenge? Let us know in the comments. Do you think that Indy is a Tomb Raider, or is he just one of the coolest characters of all time, or is he both?
Coolest character of all time, no question about it.
If you want to just make fun of Doug and his hat, leave it in the comments. It's all there. Also, check us out on Spotify, Apple, all those other places you get podcasts. I am Billy Business. I don't know.
Say it, Indiana Doug.
I'm not going to say it.
Indiana Doug.
I don't
That's
know
me.
what this is, but we will be back with you next week.